What's going on, guys? My name is John Maxwell from the Maxwell Pack, and today I am bringing you a series that is very near and dear to my heart. Today is the first episode of the Llama Hump Day podcast. What is the Llama Hump Day podcast? I am about to tell you. So what it is a podcast about theater, musicals, plays, reviews of each of those things. You know, my personal experiences and my co-host's personal experiences, who I'm about to introduce to you in just a few minutes. But to start, this episode is going to give our introductions into theater, how we first became engrossed in theater. When I was a little kid, I used to go to this very small church of about maybe 40 people called Plumfield Christian Church. And my grandpa wrote a play for that church. I was in that play. It was an Easter play. As on top of that, I fell in love with music when I first started going to that church because of the choir and things like that. It wasn't until third grade that I really got to experience musical theater for the first time. You know, everyone's had at least one experience in their life. For me, it was a little bit before that with Wizard of Oz, but this was the first time I got to see it up close and personal. And this was Aladdin Jr. that was put on by my grade school. I absolutely loved Aladdin, especially the genie, and the kid who they had playing the genie was really, really good at just coming up with different things right on the fly. And just going with something if it went wrong, per se. Now, the next year, it was announced that the director of that play would be doing her final play, her final musical. And that was Alice in Wonderland Jr. Let's just say that musical was the drizzling shit. And not in a good way. But it was my introduction into theater for the first time. I got to do the costumes and things like that. The two costumes I had, I was a rock lobster number 3, I think. No dialogue, but, you know. And also, I got to play a 1920s boy, which, that was really cool. I still have the hat that I wore for that. I may wear it on one of these times. Nonetheless, so that was my first big experience with theater. Cut to a couple years later, I get to junior high and I hear that they have a theater class. So I'm stoked as could be. Well, I decided to go ahead and try out for Cinderella Jr. Now, Cinderella Jr., the production that we put on was fairly okay. I played the Herald, and it was not my best role, but it was definitely a start. And that's really all I could ask for. But as it was a start to my actual performance, I guess you would say career, it would also be the show that would inspire my co-host, Nathan Bircoates, to become a member of the theater community. So, really, talk us through real quick how that happened and how you first fell in love with theater because of that show.
Well, my relationship with theater has always been a little bit complicated. I was never, by any means, a thespian or anything like that. I actually hated it. I was a sporty kid, as you can tell from my hat. But, I played baseball and stuff like that, so I had a pretty good voice from time to time. I would sing in the shower. But,
we all have those days.
Well, of course. I mean,
singing Justin Bieber in the shower at 3 a.m. for some reason. Baby, 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 ah! Anyways, continue.
Anyway, we had been friends for a while now at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, hey man, you want to come over and stay the night or something? And I was like, yeah, totally. And you were like, well, okay. I have an idea for us to do something fun. And I was like, oh, cool. So what is that? Come and see me in Cinderella. And I was like, oh, God, no, not Cinderella. Jeez. Because, I had seen the movie, and I was like...
Yeah, it's one of those things where I wasn't too enthused at first until I read the script and realized it's completely different from the movie.
It really was. I mean, and I remember I went there, and I was just sitting there waiting to, be let in. I think I sat there for about an hour and a half. Because, you had to get there early because you were in costume and stuff, and they wouldn't let me go back because...
Obvious reasons.
Yeah, of course. And, so I just sat there on a bench with my ticket in hand, and I was like, this is going to be the stupidest thing. But at least it'll be a fun night. Because I'll get to laugh, and maybe, I finally get into the auditorium, and the lights go down, curtains come up. And all I can tell you is that I was transformed. I mean, it was just a junior high school production, but it was beautiful. I mean, it was beautiful. The sets and the actors, which I knew most of, and I was just hooked. I just said to myself, I have to be a part of that. So the next year, I auditioned for the program.
At the end of that particular school year, Miss Kay Levanti asked us all who were in the theater program previous to bring anyone who may be interested in being a part of the theater program next year. So, I went to my buddy, Nathan, and I said, hey, why don't you come with me, because I'm going to go audition for the theater program next year. Why don't you come with me and audition as well? And to be honest, I don't think at the time I was expecting to hear, okay, sure. Next thing you know, we're in the room, we're reading a copy of, I think, Annie?
I don't think we read anything.
She had us read from these old scripts that they had, and I think it was Annie Jr.
She didn't have me read anything.
Oh.
You left because it was just me and that underclassman. We auditioned together.
Oh, yeah.
We sang Don't Stop Believin' by Journey, and a high schooler came and watched us, and they were like, wow, they gotta be in the class whenever they get there. So,
well, nonetheless, we get to the next year. My second time, at least second big time being on the stage, and I got to share my second big moment with my best friend, Nathan. And, when we got up there, or when we went into the auditioning room, I think it was kind of clear at the time, who was going to get certain things. But whenever you got the part of JoJo,
yeah.
I was ecstatic. I said that word really wrong. But anyway, at the same time, I was happy as could be whenever I got the part of Horton. But something I didn't really piece together until we started reading the script, those were the two main characters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, to this day, it kind of blows my mind that in my first outing, I got a lead role. But that was mainly due to my mezzo-soprano range. It's not that anymore, but,
No, now it's like what is it? People in show choir used to call you the tenor god or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we had that musical. We had the first night.
By the way, what we're talking about is Seussical the musical. For those of you who have heard it.
Oh yes, I completely forgot to mention that.
Yeah, we were just saying, hey, these are the characters we played. Maybe you could figure it out. But,
oh no, where's Waldo? Or Figure It Out, or Clue. I don't know. Anyway, so what was your favorite part of that? Or what was the biggest part of that really, made you want to stay in it?
The biggest part of Seussical that made me want to stay in it was, funny enough, the people. It was just a great community. Theater is a wonderful, uplifting, loving community when it wants to be, I'll say.
You got to be careful what circles you get into whenever it comes to theater, and
of course,
I think that we did end up in the right community to start off with, because like you said, everyone there was uplifting, and everyone there was very friendly about everything.
Absolutely.
And really, it's not changed much over the next different communities we got into, but to continue on, so Seussical the musical happens. We're all very proud of it, as far as performers go. But we, right after that, we were put into show choir.
Oh, that was fun.
And the end of the year, we had a concert where we were each told to do a solo.
Oh, yeah. That was interesting. It took this guy here, 3 weeks to find a solo for him. Me? I think it was 2, right?
It was 2 weeks for you to find a solo, and then...
It was because I had one picked out, but she didn't want me to sing Lion-Eyes by the Eagles because she didn't want me singing about an affair to the school. So I ended up singing She Will Be Loved by Maroon 5.
That was one of the big moments of my life that almost turned me away from theater. The only reason I mentioned that concert is because it was that night that I had to put on, or I had to do the solo of All of Me by John Legend.
And he killed it.
That's what they all say, at least. But that it was that night that, I got into the song and I started singing, and next thing you know, I start messing up the words. And in my head, I didn't sound quite right on the high notes, and I got into my own head. And after the concert was all over with, my buddy Carson, who I love him to death, he said that was the end for him as far as music went. Some stuff had happened, but I'm not going to get into that. Nonetheless, I saw that night as one of the biggest failures of my life. Months before, my grandmother had passed away, and she was one of the biggest driving forces in everything in my life. And it was with her passing away that I lost a lot of passion for everything that I did. My grades started to drop. My school, or my passion for anything I was doing started to dissipate and disappear. And it wouldn't be until the next year I decided to, sign up for music classes again. Even though I knew in my head I didn't want to do it.
At least you signed up for band and choir, right?
I signed up for band and choir, and then I got switched to show choir and choir.
That's right, yeah.
And then I got switched again to where I had to drop one of them, and I ended up dropping both of them. and taking an agricultural class and sports.
God, that feels like it was 100 years away.
It feels like it's been... yeah, that was freshman year, and it's 4 years now. It feels like it's been...
It's only been 3 years since that moment. And, well, 4. But it feels like forever.
Mm-hmm. I decided to get out of the theater game. I decided to get out of the show choir game. I decided to get out of music and theater altogether. And this is where his story continues.
Yeah. Basically, I stuck with it. And he'll tell you more about this, but apparently I was the one who kind of dragged him back into the fold after freshman year. Freshman year, we ended up doing Little Mermaid, right? Mm-hmm. And the drama teacher was ecstatic about me playing a very certain part. And I was scared at what that part was going to be because I wanted to play Flounder.
I love this story. I'm just laughing.
So, I remember that... Well, I'm a freshman, and I don't really know how this works because this is just my second show. Well, third, but I mean, I'm not really counting plays in this moment. Freshman year is also where I played one of my favorite characters, Pinky, which was a gangster who was a con artist, who was secretly just a really flamboyant individual. Yeah, that's how they told me to play him. I didn't, because I was not a good actor.
What are you talking about? You played the gangster part to a T. It was just when it came to the ending part that it was like, oop.
Well, I think it's because you don't want your name to be attached to something that I don't know. It's whatever. Anyway, I'm a freshman. I don't know how this goes. All right, I know I'm not going to get any leads or anything, and she has a very specific part in mind for me. She's told me this, so I decide one day after school, I have her for French. I'm going to walk up to her and I'm going to talk to her. It's the first time I ever initiated a conversation with a drama teacher. And I was like, hey, listen, this is kind of weird. I don't know if you ever get it, but I really, really, really want to play Flounder. And she was like, well, that's great news because that's exactly who I was going to put you as. You still have to audition, of course, and of course I did. I think I sang Flounder's song for my audition, and she was like, it's too low for you, we're going to have to write it up. And then it ended up still being too low for me because puberty.
Did you sing something, what was it? Did you sing something else before you sang Flounder's song, or was that your actual audition?
That was my audition.
Holy crap.
Apparently, she was going to give me the part. Anyway, all I had to do was really just show up. Half of that show was pre-cast, other than Ursula and Ariel. Like Sebastian and King Triton, who, phenomenal, by the way. And Prince Eric, also on that phenomenal list. They were pre-cast.
Yeah. That whole show, whenever it got there, I just remember I was in wrestling at the time. I had auditioned for the show, once again trying to, slip a little bit back in, but not really wanting to put everything back into it. And with wrestling going on at the time, and I was in Scholar Bowl, I couldn't do it. I couldn't get back into it, and on top of that, I felt like, again, I wasn't good enough to get back into it. And part of that not feeling good enough would be something that would haunt me all the way throughout, up until very recently. But, so, you get to you guys go through the process. What was it like for your first show in high school as far as the weeks leading up to it.
I'll speak about the fall play and then about the musical because they're two very, very different things. The person who usually directed the fall play, which was the drama teacher that directed the musical, could not do it for family reasons and stuff. And so they had the history teacher for seniors do it, and he had no idea what he was doing, and you could tell it. I mean, I don't want to be rude, but you could tell it. And I tried to help him out as much as I could, but one thing that I really struggled with early on in high school was social anxiety. So I could go on for hours about that, but he knows that. Yeah, we were in rehearsals, and it was really, really weird because high school is a brand new medium. Junior high and high school, they're two very, very different things. Not just academically, but overall, your body's going through changes, and I'm not going to talk about that in depth. But basically, my mezzo soprano was starting to become...
Mommy, why do I have hair down here? Continue.
Your host, everyone. So, basically, my mezzo soprano that I was at in 8th grade is starting to become a baritone bass quality, and I don't want to be a baritone or a bass because I like singing high. I've always sang high. So, but basically what I can tell you is that it was basically all the same. The community is what kept me in it. I was, especially during Mermaid, I was really, really discouraged. A lot. And the leads just kind of took me by the hand, so to speak, and said, hey, we got you. You go out there, you're going to do great, and it's going to be amazing. And when this is you, you're going to look back on that and you're going to laugh. And I have. So.
So, you get through the process. You guys have been working on it for weeks and weeks. I don't know. Should we wait to tell them about Hell Week until a little bit? For anyone in theater, you know what Hell Week is.
Of course.
That's the week where it's also referred to as Tech Week, but that's the week where you get the mics, you get the equipment, you get the costumes, you get everything. And it's in that...
the director is up your ass 24/7 for a good reason.
Throughout the majority of a musical, unless you have a really strict director, it's usually a lot more laid back than it is on the final week.
Absolutely, and I want to touch on that real quick. That was part of the reason why the fall play kind of lacked a little bit, is because he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't really have a backbone, and he never used it.
Mm-hmm.
He never had that stern side to tell people, hey guys, let's get it together. And you gotta have that as a director. I know. So
we'll be getting onto that in quite a little bit, but so you guys get through Hell Week, you get to the musical. That night, or the night just before you guys put on your first musical, you guys held a assembly in the auditorium. What was it the night of? Or the day of?
I think it was the day of, because I got let out of classes to go run errands. We had to pick up concession stuff, so we went to Rural King in Marion.
You lucky sons of guns.
Yeah.
Ever since I got in, nothing like that's ever happened. Or at least if it has, I was not one of them told.
Yeah, it was a last year type of thing. We don't do it much anymore. what we used to do was go to all the schools in the district and preview the show the best we could, and bring out the leads and say, hey, I'm Nathan, I play Flounder, and hey, I'm so and so, and I play this character, and to get kids to come and see it too, because I mean, it's Little Mermaid, kids are gonna come see it.
Mm-hmm.
So
what was it like for the first time being in the costume in a high school level?
Weird. It was weird. I mean, for JoJo, we basically just had pajamas and a sweatshirt and a sweater. And really stupid suspenders. They were orange. Like, really.
That's basically what it was for Horton as well. Except with Horton, the one thing that I look back on with the most disdain of about that show is they didn't even give me freaking ears. That's the most important part about a freaking elephant.
That and his nose.
The nose, maybe a tail, like a small spinny one.
You didn't even have any, like, gray makeup on.
They literally put me in a thing and they said, you're Horton. Be Horton.
He looked like a 1920s newspaper boy, but, like, he forgot to get dressed that morning. I mean,
I looked like a newsboy without the actual newsboy getup.
Yeah.
Like a newsboy who had wore his suspenders with his pajamas, which... Who?
If you do it. I'm not judging, but I'm judging a little bit.
So...
How could you sleep like that? Like, seriously.
Can you imagine the metal digging into your back?
Dude, I had to lay down on the stage because I fell asleep.
Well, you fall asleep in the middle of the song.
In the middle of the song, I had to lay down on the stage, and I remember being like, oh my god, just shut up. The guy who was playing the cat, he really loved over-accentuating things. And I was like, just shut up, just do your thing, and let's get up, let's go. I mean, really.
Good kid.
He's gotten a lot better since then.
Gotten a lot better. Yeah. Anyway. So, you get to the night of the show. You guys put on the assembly performance. And it was at that assembly performance that I got to see probably the most big, impactful song of the show.
Part of Your World?
No.
No.
You guys during the preview, you guys actually sang a bit of...
did She's in Love,
Mm-hmm.
Under the Sea,
Mm-hmm.
and Kiss the Girl, right?
No, if I'm correct.
Fathoms Below. We did Fathoms Below, I think.
You guys also did If Only.
Yes, we did If Only.
And that's the one...
I wasn't in that.
That's the one that it's like... I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh. What have I done? And I just remember watching and being in tears as I watched. That night, needless to say, I bought a ticket. And I showed up, sat up in the balcony, and I watched...
Did you come to the Saturday show?
I came to the Friday and the Saturday, but I was getting to that. I watched with amazement at just everything that they put together in it. Now, I don't remember, I don't know if I'm remembering this detail correctly or not, but if I am, didn't they build a frickin' pirate ship for that?
I get to tell you the story about the cube.
About the what?
The cube. So, there's this recurring thing in the set at FCHS. I think we stopped using it for this year's production, which is really sad.
Like, what cube?
You remember the Rubik's Cube that she always had, like, by the steps, where the steps for Joseph were? You remember that?
Not entirely, no.
It was, like, during Addams Family. I don't know if we used it, what we used it for Addams Family for, but, so we had this cube that was always, like, they had it painted as a Rubik's Cube for the musicals that the high school did when we were 8th graders.
Back to the 80s.
Back to the 80s, which I did not go see, and I still regret it to this day.
We also had the opportunity to be in it, and that's one of my biggest regrets about, missing it and missing the opportunity.
Absolutely, I regret that too. But they had it painted for a Rubik's Cube. I don't really know the whole plot. If you do, cool. I was just never into a whole lot of jukebox musicals. I like original stuff myself, but
I don't know, some jukebox musicals can work.
Yeah, depends. So what I'm saying is that I love Mamma Mia. Okay, if you don't love Mamma Mia, we're gonna fight. All right, we're gonna fight. We're gonna fight.
Because that'll, again, stuff that's going to be gotten to a little bit later down the line.
Absolutely. But, so this Rubik's Cube, we decided that we were going to have to make a pirate ship because it's a pretty big part of the first scene, Fathoms Below, which starts off the show. And Prince Eric is on the ship, and so is the captain. And,
I say pirate ship, but it's not exactly pirate. It's like what you would think of.
It's a ship. I mean, yeah. It's a boat. So we decided we're going to paint this whole thing brown, and we're going to put, like, little wings on the side of it. And it was a great idea in our heads, and a horrible, horrible idea, I think, in action.
So, this thing gets built. Is that the thing that they used eventually for the main show?
Yes.
See, I remember watching and thinking, oh my goodness, how did they build that? Because on the night of course, it's only a half pirate ship and it's cut off in the middle. So it looks, a little funky.
Yeah.
But it looked, to me, the scenery was amazing. The costumes were amazing, all except for a few.
We were high schoolers.
And on top of all that, we had a guy who is now working at Disney, playing the lead character, or not the lead character, but the lead male lead.
Yeah. You would think that somebody who's been in theater for a while would. I stumble
on my words. You know this about me, and you guys are gonna find this out about me if you hadn't already found out by watching some of my other things that I've done.
We all do.
But the male lead was a guy who went off to work at Disney. The person who played the main villain, Ursula, was one of the most phenomenal singers we'd ever had at our school. One of the most phenomenal altos we'd ever had at our school.
Absolutely.
The lead character that protagonist, of course, but anyways, the female lead of the show, Ariel.
There it is.
Oh man. In case you're wondering, it is 12:57 a.m. and we are filming this very late. That's why part of me is not really working that well. Also, my voice keeps cutting out.
Your voice? Listen. Congestion. That is all.
Head colds are a son of a bitch.
No kidding.
Anyway. So, I don't know how many times I've said that exact phrase, anyways, so. I'm gonna try to change that. Anyway, so we get back into the musical. You guys put on the performance for all of us there at the school, and most of the people were just, I want to go home.
You're gonna get that from high school, always.
I just want to go home so I can sleep or go to work. Or,
I mean, think back to whenever, like, your school had pep rallies. Did you really want to be there? I mean, half of you. If you played for sports, then that's a different story.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, if you were like, man, I just want to get home and play some Smash Bros. Or something like that. I mean, it's relatable, right?
It's relatable, but Smash Bros?
Screw you. That is a great game.
Anyway, we get to the night of, I buy a ticket, and by the end of the night, I'm in tears, I'm amazed, and like you said earlier, I'm transformed.
So you basically have the moment that I had with Cinderella.
That's exactly what I have. I'm up in the balcony, I'm watching this, and at moments I'm in tears, at moments I'm just clapping, but this would also be the first time that I really started my, I guess, long observant take on watching musicals, because usually I do the whole, you get up, you clap, and you sit in your chair and you're like,
you got a good derpy face.
You suck. Anyway, but it was in this night that I just kind of sat and I watched and I observed the details of the show, and I started to put together the world of the show like I hadn't even done in the productions I had already been in. And I realized that I want to be a part of that world. I want to be back in that world. I want to be back in that community. I want to be in theater. So the show gets over with. I go greet him. I congratulate him on a job well done. I congratulate all the different castmates. Tell them that, they did amazing. And the next night, I had no money left. I begged my mom and dad to give me just enough to get in. And I went and saw it a second time. And the Saturday night one was even better than the Friday night.
That's what he says. I mean, I screwed up Saturday.
You screwed up Saturday, but at the same time.
No, dude, that was one of my worst moments on stage ever. I cracked. Bad. It was more like a squawk. Look at those.
I remember that now.
Yeah. One of my castmates, the guy who played King Triton, he came and met me after I did that, and he was like, "Dude, are you okay?" Because I don't crack. I mean, I don't. If I crack, it's something is bad, something is wrong. But also, I was not trained. Get voice lessons, kids. It helps.
We skip ahead once again. Another year after this is over with. Well, first of all, I got to get to the concert, don't I? by this point, your voice had changed again.
Yeah. You ever have that happen? When your voice changes twice?
In 1 year. And the in Little Mermaid, whenever he went on to sing She's in Love, you gotta think,
best song of the show.
He sounded like this. She acts like she don't see me, she doesn't even speak, she treats me like sashimi left over from last week.
It was really dopey and deep, and not to get too vocal pedagogical.
Mm-hmm.
You know what that means?
I cannot say I do.
Basically, it's like the study of the voice and like why it works the way it does. Apparently,
Pedagogical.
Yeah, pedagogy.
Mm.
Those of you who know pedagogy, A+. B-. I'm kidding. So
Host, damn it. Oh, also, I'm the co-host, I guess. We're the co-hosts.
That's right. But apparently, see if you do this. Like seriously, I was subconsciously pushing my larynx down when I talked and when I sang, because I was always taught, open the soft palate, open your throat. So I was like, ugh. And it hurt. It really hurt, because I found out later, dude, you're a tenor. Stop doing that. So yeah.
So you get to the concert and your voice has done a complete 180 and has gone from she acts like she don't see me, she doesn't even speak,
Don't ask me to.
all the way up to she treats me like she see me left over from last week.
I won't do that now because congestion.
Yeah.
I will do that every time I say congestion, by the way.
Congestion.
Congestion. Imagine somebody took like an out of context thing, just congestion.
Anyway, so we get to that, or we get past that. The next year, I sign up for show choir, or not show choir. I sign up for choir and band. That's very important. I would not sign up.
Should we tell them about the very other important thing that?
Let's just say that some controversy happened with the current choir and band teacher that was at our school.
And we had to end up getting a new one.
It's funny. The first 3 years of our high school, we had 3 new choir teachers.
Yeah.
3 new band teachers. And 3 new principals.
You wonder why we're still at school?
Are we still in school? Because COVID-19 says we're not.
Still a school.
Yeah.
I mean, a complete shifting of management for 3 years. I mean, there's no way to get anything done.
I think that explains the state of the music program for a while. Now we've kind of gotten back on track, but best save thoughts for later for that one. The next year comes, I sign up for band, I sign up for choir. I do not sign up for show choir. At the time, it was a club that they were holding at lunch. And I was one of those stupid sophomores who was like, I don't want to give up my lunch for that.
Very stupid sophomore. He was the best.
So, he had, for the show choir teacher, the the best music teacher to come through that school in the last 5-10 years.
Huzzah.
And if you're watching, I do mean that. But he has her. I have this for choir and for band. We have a different teacher. She was a part-time teacher. What's so funny?
He loved my story. I love this story. Go. Because I lived it.
So, let's say... It's funny because we were... everyone who was in this class of music has labeled this the Blake Ages. And if you're wondering why we labeled it the Blake Ages, the woman who we had teaching for us was a semi-retired, well, actually she was fully retired before she came back, but a part-time music teacher who had just come back to the States from Thailand. She was a very unique person, let's just say.
Wow.
What?
He's kind. I gotta give him that.
Very kind because, well, let's see. She was very grouchy.
Oh.
She tried to stay nice most of the time. When it came to band, she didn't know what the heck she was doing. I'm sorry.
Preach.
I don't mean to get rude, and I'm really trying not to get negative on here, but she did not know what she was doing when it came to band stuff. As far as choir went, she was fairly decent. She did not know how to play the piano, if I'm correct, right?
No. Yeah.
That was one of the big things, which, shockingly, only one of our teachers has, and again, that was controversial. Anyway, so this little, trying to continue on with why this is called the Blake Ages. So, we are in her class one day, and she, first of all, me and this kid named Jimmy Drennan, and another kid named, well, I'm not going to name him, but he was the kid who was in the story earlier who played the Cat in the Hat. We loved to mess around and really try to disrupt her.
They tried to piss her off.
We really did. It was really funny, too.
It would be like...
The best thing about this whole entire period is halfway through the year, Jimmy Drennan prints off this picture of the Russian president. The Russian president on a horse, shirtless, and sticks it on the wall right behind the piano. And every day we would look up to it and we would do the worst of jokes and things like that. Like one day we're sitting there and I just got my hand over my heart and she looks at me and she's like, "Johnny, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Saying my pledge." "Why are you doing the Pledge of Allegiance right now?" "You could call it a Pledge of Allegiance, but I'm not looking at the American flag." Anyways, that is not saying anything. It was funny because he was shirtless on a horse.
Photoshop does wonders.
Another thing that was not photoshopped. That's a real photo.
No, it is not.
Yes, it's a real photo he took because he wanted to show off his masculinity.
That didn't even look real.
It didn't look real because he printed it off on our school's printer. Also, I darkened the nipples because I thought that would be funny.
That was a little bit
Too much.
over the line, according to Jimmy and myself.
According to Jimmy, it was over the line, but it was like not. Oh, that's too much. It's like that's not funny anymore. Anyways,
No, what would have been funny is if we put pictures of her as the nipples.
We're so mean.
Dang.
Anyways,
When we get a time machine, that's where we're going.
So the Blake Ages comes from a day in class where she's talking about.
She's making us take notes.
She's making us take notes, and it was. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she's talking about either the Black Plague or she's talking about a song that was written by African Americans, and she started calling them. She said it was a song written by black people.
I don't remember.
Or it was.
Oh, that would be the one spiritual we did.
Yes. We had to do a spiritual, which I don't really know if that's wrong or not.
Wasn't it that Hebrew thing?
Yes.
We started the year with it.
Mm-hmm. And
then we revisited it, and she was like, "Yeah, this is a song written by Blake people."
We were like, and this
what?
is. Or can you hear me? The Blake marker. The black marker. Yes, I said the Blake marker.
Her story, she could not pronounce black.
Even though we literally talked her through it, and she was like, "Oh, the black marker." Can't pronounce it.
And then the next day,
the Blake. So, like I said, Jimmy Drennan. I mentioned his name because he's one of my one of my best friends ever since I started getting into music. He's a funny guy. He's one of the. He can come up with stuff on the fly, out of random, and he will make you laugh your ass off.
Just a second.
Oh no! Stay away from me. Congestion. Anyways, so
I'll stop.
We get through that. We get through the Blake Ages of music, and we get through to about halfway in the year, where we had auditions for the next school musical, The Addams Family.
Da-da-da-da. Will we get copyright for that?
It's just the first part, so I don't know.
Okay. Da-da-da-da. Sorry.
This is a new video, and I'm already going to have to take it down. We get... So... Auditions were... For me, they've always been one of the worst parts about theater.
I will say this about Johnny. Honestly. He's one of the greatest actors I have ever worked with. And I've worked with a lot. And I mean that.
Oh.
He sucks at auditioning.
You're not wrong.
I mean, he sucks.
It's... The fact of the matter is, when you are on stage performing in front of people, you have about 100 people at minimum to work with and to listen to and to get different reactions from. When you go into audition, you've got, on a good day, sometimes, and on a worst case scenario...
Now, on really, really good days, you get...
Those are the easier ones. Because you've got a wider array of people who can give their reactions, give their opinions.
Which is kind of weird, if you think about it. Like, for those of you who, like, have stage fright or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know you don't want to sing with any one person, but, like, I'm kind of curious now. What do you think is worse? Like, auditioning in front of 5 people, 3, or 1? I know my answer. One. Because if he or she's frowning, you're going home crying.
One of the things that scares me about the director who, again, one of the best music teachers, best directors ever at our school. The thing that scares me about her is when you get into an audition, doesn't matter if she likes it or not, this is the face you get. It scares the living daylights out of you when you're up there.
Hey, buddy, there are people asleep.
Yeah, I know.
Trying to wake up the whole neighborhood over here.
It scares the living daylights out of you whenever you get that reaction from her. Because, when you're new to it, you think, oh my god, she doesn't like it. No matter how good you've done, you could have just performed, what is it? Well, you could have been can I say his name?
I mean, if you want.
You could be a Brax Melvin, who is, again, he's the guy who went to Disney, one of the greatest performers our town ever yielded.
My mentor.
A guy who I didn't get to know enough about before he left for the big time Disney. But so this was my first musical auditioning, was Addams Family in high school. And
yeah, good.
I was beyond nervous.
And I told him I have no idea why. Because, like, after you audition for a show, you realize, okay, they don't really take auditions as seriously as others. And our high school is one of those.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And on top of that, once you've gotten through it a little bit, it becomes second nature when you work with certain people multiple times. The night of auditions, I was beyond nervous. I decided to do a rendition of a song that I had done years ago in 8th grade. Salah Salou from Seussical.
Represent.
And I got through the song. She said thank you. Be checking out the cast list. The next 4 or 5 days.
I just want to say, I did Corner of the Sky from Pippin. Maybe you've heard of it. And it did not sound ideal because I still wasn't quite used to my tenor godliness, so to speak. I don't go by that anymore, so.
I
mean, because it has that really, really high note at the end. Corner of the sky! And you gotta belt it.
I knew you were going to have a little moment before the night was over. I'm glad that you had it here and I didn't have to continue comparing your voice using my voice.
Yeah, that's gotta be pretty frustrating.
Mm-hmm. So, I get done, I go out and I talk to him and I'm like, dude, I'm so nervous. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to make it through or not.
And this is literally what I'm doing.
I got pissed off.
I'm laughing my ass off. Because he's treating this like it's a Broadway audition.
Something that most people, after they get to know me, begin to realize is I take everything seriously as if it was my biggest thing.
Which is a good quality. Sometimes.
Well, most of the times. It's few moments that it's not.
I mean, if you're like doing a history test and you're like, oh my gosh, if I don't get an A on this, I'm gonna die. That's.
I don't have those moments.
You used to.
I used to?
Dude, I remember this one time you got a B in like 4th grade and you like cried.
It was a B in 3rd grade, and it was not fair because a kid had stolen my papers and put them in his name.
Meanwhile, your boy had an F. I have no idea how I passed 3rd grade. I never did my homework.
And yet somehow he's now top 10 in the class.
Redemption story.
A redemption story for another time.
I wasn't going to share it anyway, because that is really boring.
It's not really that boring.
It was basically, I was telling myself, get your grades on, or...
Your mom's going to smack the shit out of you.
Yes, exactly.
Your mom... what was the... You can tell this one. What did she tell you when she found out that you had the F?
I don't really remember a whole lot of it. She threatened to take my PlayStation away. Yeah. I mean, that was basically my life in 3rd grade. I don't really remember a whole lot of it. I just remember I would come home and I would say, yeah, I finished it at school, which I didn't. Because, of course, that's the oldest trick in the book. And my mom believed me because I was a pretty good student. I did not. And I want to apologize to my 3rd grade teacher if she ever watches this. Look at how I turned out.
So, Adam's family, the nights after audition, I was wrecked with anxiety about, did I get it? Did I get it? Did I get it? If you're wondering what role I was hoping, begging, pleading for...
Just a second. Look at him.
Picture me with no hair.
You figured it out yet?
If not, then you've not seen Adam's Family. I wanted the part of Uncle Fester.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted it more than I had ever wanted any other role up until this past year. And the day that the cast list came out, there was a typo.
It wasn't really a typo. I mean, it was a full word. I don't think that's a typo.
It was a full word, but it was definitely like a mistype.
Was he even in the show?
No.
I thought it was like an extra or something.
No. He wasn't in the show. He wasn't an extra.
That's a shame.
He was a student.
That's a shame. He would have been awesome.
My full name is Johnny. So, there was a kid who was also named Johnny who was a class above me. Madame, which was she was a French teacher, so you would call her by Madame, had been in a class with him just hours before, and she was pissed at him. So while she's typing it down, she's thinking with rage in her head about this kid who's just pissed her off, and she types in his name for the role of Uncle Fester. I'm at home and I read this, and my heart breaks.
I remember.
Into about 1,000 pieces.
I was with him. I saw Pugsley Adams, Nathan, and I was like, yes! Because that's what I wanted. I mean, look at me.
You wanted one other role, though, didn't you?
I mean,
back then,
in retrospect, I wanted to play Lucas, but after seeing My Name is Pugsley and like seeing the costume and like getting into rehearsal, I was like, oh yeah, definitely. It's the only character that I've played, and I've played adults before, that I was actually allowed to smoke on stage. Not really,
no,
but I also
Do you
figured
still
out
have the
how. I also figured out how to smoke on stage. Don't inhale. You will get pneumonia and die. And that's my PSA for the day. You blow out.
Thank God you didn't have to find that out the hard way, and she actually told you that.
I was in rehearsal
Mm-hmm.
at the read-through. You weren't there.
Mm-hmm.
And and I remember it was like one scene. It was right before What If.
Mm-hmm.
And like he like takes a puff of his cigar after he talks to Lucas, and he's like, "Yeah, that's my sister for you." And I was like, and she's like, "Don't do that. You're gonna die." So, yeah.
Can you imagine if that's how you actually did a fake cigar? Just inhaling? In that case, would it really be a fake cigar?
Madame, if you're watching, I'm sorry. I did. On accident. On stage. And I got back to backstage, and I muted my mic, and I started coughing. Almost coughing up a lung.
Not quite pneumonia and dying.
Not quite, but it was interesting.
So I see the cast list. He's ecstatic. I'm heartbroken. Until I then go to school the next day was exams.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And I'm told at school, after I'm done with my final exam, I'm like, "Hey, Madame, I was just wondering, what did I get?"
No, she's like, "Hey, are you excited about the show?"
I was like, "Yeah, but what did I get?"
Well, you got Uncle Fester.
What? And I started asking, like, what? It says it was Johnny Redacted. I'm not going to say his name. And she's like,
Johnny Appleseed.
Well, let's go with that. You said it was Johnny Appleseed. She was like, oh, shit. Did I actually type that? I mean, she didn't say, oh, shit. But that's basically the gist of it. It was like, oh, my. Did I type that? I was mad at him.
And that's my first
the class period before.
That's my first directing tip for anyone who wants to go into that. Madame actually gave it to me. Do not ever type your cast list when you have something else, especially something that makes you angry, on your mind. Because you might end up putting like an F word in there on accident. Thank you all for coming out. Now please enjoy the fucking show.
Or something like, you type in, instead of my last name, she types in Johnny. Oh, God. Luckily, that did not happen, but...
Throw the computer out the window. She's on the 3rd floor, so it would do some damage.
What do you mean it'd shatter the damn thing?
I'm saying to, like, somebody walking by.
Imagine he was walking by. You know who you are, and I'm sorry for the jokes. Other Johnny.
Where were we? Oh, yeah, the cast list.
So, I find out that it's me. And, like he said earlier, the process was very different to everything, but at the same time it was similar because everyone was a tightly knit family. Now, I don't know exactly if I have anything per se wrong with me, at least doctor diagnosed, but one thing that is very noticeable about me in certain situations is I tend to separate myself from everyone else. I'll talk to you, I'll joke with you, but internally I start
tearing yourself apart.
Not tearing myself apart, but tearing myself away from the group.
So basically he'll talk to you, he just won't be himself. I mean, that's the best way I can put it, because I've seen it in action.
And it's not something that, like, I'm trying to do it maliciously or anything like that. It's just...
Of course not.
Whenever I'm in a group of people that I don't feel like I belong in, I try to find a way to make myself belong.
I think we all have those moments.
And Adam's Family as a personal moment was one of those. It was my biggest accomplishment on the stage for years. But at the same time, it was one of the biggest moments of, do I really belong here, that I ever felt. So we get to, I guess, a couple weeks into the show, or a couple weeks into the backstage stuff of the show, the behind the scenes.
He had to miss a lot of rehearsals for some reason. I'm not entirely sure.
It wasn't rehearsals for this one, was it?
Yeah, because you missed read-through in the first music.
Oh, it's because those are snow days.
Yeah, we still have rehearsal on snow days.
I know.
I mean,
I had to babysit my sister.
You know that now, but... Oh, that's right. Forgot about that. No, because the read-through was at night.
I don't know why I missed the read-through then.
It was at 6 o'clock, I think.
So, from a performance standpoint, both you and I were kind of getting better, getting more into it, getting more polished at it.
I mean, I don't really think you could say that about yourself. I mean, you know what I mean? Without sounding like arrogant and pompous, the only person who can like really tell you whether or not you're getting better is other people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And what I've heard is that I've just gotten better as the years go on. And I don't really feel it. I didn't feel it until this year.
We put on Adam's Family, and it was the hell week, that we had gotten this bald cap for me because of Uncle Fester. You have to be bald. If you're not, then I'm sorry, what are you doing? But they had the gray face paint, everything, the darkening of the eyes. We hadn't put it on yet, I don't think. We didn't do that until... Oh, wait, no. Oh, we didn't have gray face paint.
Oh, we didn't?
That's what it was. The week of the show, I'm supposed to have a bald cap. And one night, I'm putting it on. I'm trying to get it to slip on. I've got it glued here and here, and I'm just trying to pull it on, and all at once I hear a... And I'm like, oh, shit.
I don't know what I was doing at that point.
And so I'm backstage. I'm hysterical. I'm like, the bald cap ripped! The bald cap ripped! The bald cap ripped! And Madam's just like, Johnny, you have to get out there! She didn't sound like that, of course, but she's yelling at me like, you have to get out there. It doesn't matter right now. It's dress rehearsal. Get out there and do your thing. So we get out there. I'm in costume, all except for being bald and face paint. And we go through the show. And I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? Our original idea was to shave me bald in the beginning. But she just decided, since my parents were a little bit weary of that, that she would get a bald cap and I'd be able to use it. With the bald cap ripped, it was now down to I have two options. I go out with hair and really don't stay true to the character of Uncle Fester, or I make a self-sacrifice, beg my parents into accepting that I had to do this for a show, and that this was what I wanted to do, this was my passion, and I wanted to put my all into it.
I think you know what the answer was.
For what?
I'm talking to them.
Oh. And after, talking to them and just persuading.
How long did it take you to, persuade them?
My mom was okay with it within, a few minutes of, talking, and she was like, I understand. My dad was like, I just don't want to see my son bald. I don't want him to have to, do that if he doesn't really have to do that.
Was he afraid that it wasn't going to grow back?
Well, he was afraid that I was going to get mocked, I was going to get picked on.
Turns out, a lot of people actually loved it.
So,
at least from what I saw.
It's Thursday night. And we have a dress rehearsal. And the very next night, we have the show.
Opening night.
We have opening night.
I'm taking this off because I'm sweaty.
The next morning, we have an assembly.
Did we do an assembly for Adam's Family?
We did.
We did pulled. And just around the corner, right?
Pulled just around the corner, and there was one other, but I don't remember what it was.
Probably one of Gomez's songs. We did not do...
Not today?
We did not do the first song, I don't think.
We didn't do When You're in Adams?
I don't think so. We might have. That would have made sense, but I don't really know.
So... that Thursday night, I go to my barber, and I give him I give her a request that she was not expecting. She's like, "Oh, hey Johnny, what do you want to get this time?" And at this point, I was doing the fade. I had gotten my hair cut short on the sides multiple times, but never had I gotten it bald. I told her, I need you to take all of it off. She was like, what? Next thing you know, she's got the razor shaving my head. I have moles on the back of my head, so I can't exactly use a straight razor to shave. So I'm having to re-go over it with a shaver. And I had my dad help me, and nonetheless, I was bald. I show up to rehearsal that night.
And my reaction, oh, good Lord.
His reaction was of, well, yeah, exactly what you just did.
It was shock and a little bit of like making fun of you, but in a good way.
He says in a good way.
If there is a good way. Teasing like friends do.
Now, throughout this whole process of becoming Uncle Fester, this whole musical was the first musical that I really put my all into. That I studied the character, that I actually studied old episodes of Addams Family to get the voice right, to get the mannerisms right, to get the overall character right, and to bring the character into me. And at the time, I thought, well, yeah, everyone's saying I did a good job, but the night of the first show, it gets over with. There's a particular person backstage. I'm not going to name his name right now, but I have talked about him earlier in the stories. And he's talking to some of the other actors, and I'm just thinking, okay, I can't wait for him to come by and talk to me. I even start going over trying to, engage a conversation with him. And he never even looked at me. And that moment hurt.
That moment was probably a big part of why you felt so left out.
It was a big part of why I felt like I wasn't doing the right thing. That I wasn't in the right path. It would take reassurance, which would come over the next year. So, I've given my personal notes about Addams Family. Now it's time for your side of the Pugsley story.
There's not a lot to tell about the Pugsley story other than the funny ones. I mean, I was still dealing with social anxiety pretty horribly. And I'll talk about that in a second. But basically, this is where I got my name, Tenor God. Because Pugsley is supposed to hit a D5 in the show. And I think we raised it a half step, so I ended up hitting an E flat, actually.
Is that strange, weird kid?
Yes.
Okay.
And what was weird is that back then I had this weird operatic falsetto. I can't really describe it. He can do it better.
It was like a weird mixture between human falsetto and, if you've ever heard any of the choir boys from old mid or 17th century or 16th century, the ones that had a certain procedure done, snip snip, to leave their voices forever operatic.
That was me.
That was the kind of voice that he had.
Now I still hit those notes, but they're in mix. So, which means instead of falsetto, it's head voice and a little bit of your speaking voice comes into it. It's kind of hard to explain, but
anyone who's in theater knows what that is.
Yeah, you know what your mix is. By the way, if you are in theater, little tip: Your belty notes should be in your mix, not in your chest voice.
Yes, indeed.
You learn that the hard way. By squawking on stage.
Excuse me.
But yeah. Like, for me, it was just a great show. I loved playing Pugsley. I loved being a part of that show. It's left a big mark on me. I mean, and backstage, like, before the show would start, I was, like, coming out of my shell a little bit, but whenever the curtains would close, I would just become isolated. And really, behind the scenes, my whole life has always been that way. I mean, I'm surprised that I became friends with him in 3rd grade. Because
I'm gonna get up for just a moment.
Because I wasn't a popular kid by any stretch. Yeah, I played sports and I did all this stuff, but he killed a bug. Go Johnny.
Didn't kill it, I smacked it away.
But to find, like, people that actually I could trust and I could connect with, it was weird. Right after the musical, I felt like I was being left out. And I think I even, on that Facebook post, I put something like, thanks for letting me be a part of this show, even though it felt like I wasn't part of the family.
And it's funny because we experienced similar things, we just dealt with it in extremely different ways.
Yeah.
Your brand was isolation.
Part of it was, like, due to, like, girls and weird things. I mean, look, you started this sad stuff. I wasn't going to make it all that sad, but I mean, it's hard to talk about because it wasn't a great place. But I'm in a lot better of a place now.
So, Adam's family comes to a close. We all have our tears. I have my look at the stage, look at the crowd, or look at the people who are hugging each other, walk out. That would for a little bit become a bit of a staple of mine. Look at the people hugging and saying goodbyes, look at the stage, and leave. Not saying my own personal goodbyes or anything like that. Me and him would talk after the shows and stuff. As far as music goes, the next year would be a huge, I guess,
Step forward.
A huge step forward as far as my personal image of myself went. As far as myself, what would the word be that I'm looking for?
Your self-view? Your self-perception?
Perception, that's what it is. My own self-perception would, in a way, grow, and in another way, take probably the biggest hit it had taken of my in all of my life. We always at our school we always held a variety show. Don't know if that tradition's going to continue now. Hopefully it will.
Oh, it'll continue.
Who knows if the student council of this year gets past what they were trying to, they may have more than just one next year.
That'd be cool.
But
I don't want to cut you off or anything, but what are we at right now?
Mm-hmm.
What are we at, like, time-wise?
Hour 30.
Okay. How long do you want it?
It's fine. Whatever.
Alright.
Just keep going until we feel like we want to shut it off. I mean, that's the point of a podcast, isn't it?
I mean, sometimes.
And especially for an introductory one. Of course, as this continues on, I will have a more laid out, structured format.
We will not rant as much.
There will not be as much ranting.
I will not rant as much.
I will try not to rant as much.
He will probably rant.
So...
But it's okay. What can we do?
The musical concludes, and it's a success. Next year, the variety show comes. We both enter.
I got talked into it. I wasn't going to.
I entered with a song that a lot of people who are into oldies really enjoy, and that's The Night Chicago Died. It's one of those songs that talks about a very dark day in history, but yet is so upbeat and pumped up. Everyone was up on their feet and clapping.
You mean we didn't start the fire?
That one as well, but that one is a lot more confusing. This one's more cut and dry. Literally the first few lines is, Daddy was a cop on the east side of Chicago, back in the battle days, or back in the USA, back in the battle days, in the heat of the summer night, in the land of the dollar bill, when the town of Chicago died. And they talk about it still.
He won with this. You'd have to hear the song.
I won the first place trophy for that.
In music.
The overall winner was, she did a rendition of Burn from Hamilton. It was an amazing performance, and she deserved the win.
Absolutely, but really?
What?
Burned, Bernie. Doesn't even know Hamilton.
I know Hamilton, it's just, it's 1:55 a.m.
Well,
forgive me for my lack of...
That, and forgive me for being controversial. But, I don't really care for it all that much. It's not on my top 5s for musicals. It's probably like my top 8.
I think there's a lot of great songs in it, but at the same time, it's a musical for me. It's wonderful that it mixes so much history, but anyway, so the variety show gets over with. Tell me if you feel comfortable with it, how you were feeling, like on a personal and emotional level at this time.
At the variety show.
At the variety show and the months leading after.
Would this be before or after Mamma Mia?
Oh, this is the after. I just stubbed my toe.
If you're wondering why I didn't really laugh, it's because it's kind of commonplace for him. Just letting you know that.
My toe hurts.
Yeah, like, I mean, I basically touched on it. I got talked into doing it. I don't even remember who talked me into doing it.
It was either me or the blonde one.
I don't know. I don't really remember who talked me into it. But I was definitely, like, I was not going to do it. Because solo singing is just, it's never really been my thing. I mean, other than whenever I was a kid. I got out of it, and whenever I started playing characters, I was like, yeah, this is it. This is what I want to do. So I was like, no, I'm not going to do the variety show because that's weird, and it's in front of everybody. It's like, ugh. Not that I have stage fright or anything, it's just that, you know, these are people that you go to school with.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, me with social anxiety, I hate those awkward encounters whenever people are like, oh my gosh, I heard you at the variety show last night, you sound amazing. And you're like, oh, thanks. Even though in your mind you're like, I hate myself. I mean, I'm just saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's about where I was at. I wanted to play the piano for my song. I was not able to.
At the time, you didn't really know
That's part of the reason.
a lot of piano.
That's part of the reason.
Now you're like...
So I ended up singing a ballad, which only works if people know it. That's what I learned. Don't do something they don't know.
Not only if people know... Not only don't do it if people don't know it, but at the same time, you have to have a certain way to introduce it to a crowd, which...
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things, is you've got to know how to read a crowd.
I was told my performance was great. I did not place, which I didn't really expect to be honest. But
so we get past the variety show and we get into I think it was solo and ensemble.
that would have been the next semester. So we didn't have a fall play. Yeah.
Just to touch on it real quick, we were talking about Mamma Mia. Part of the reason why I was looking at him earlier whenever we were talking about, you know, if you hate Mamma Mia, he's going to fight you. And the reason he said he was going to fight me is because Mamma Mia gave me probably the most stressful and let's just say the version of me that walked into Mamma Mia. That's a weird way to put it, but where I was at in my life was at a very, very, very bad place. I don't want to go all into depth, but I was struggling with a lot of mental things. I did very stupid things behind the scenes of Mamma Mia.
I'll be right back.
Did you just...
There's no water.
Oh. I did some very stupid things behind the scenes of Mamma Mia. And that was a musical that I found my darkest place. Hi there, Pup-Up. What are you doing in here? My dog.
Need some caffeine. It's 2 o'clock.
Nice. So, we get through that part of the year. We get through Mamma Mia. I got through Mamma Mia, and it was not too long after that I was, I started to have a little bit of an uphill turn. The variety show was one of the big moments that kind of put me on that big uphill
Slope.
We got to, I think it was the night of either solo and ensemble or honor choir. But
that's one thing that I will say. Just starting junior year, we started doing a lot more extracurricular stuff.
mm-hmm.
Our teacher signed us up for that sort of thing, and we never really experienced that before. I mean, if you were in show choir, then you went to 2 competitions a year, but you didn't really compete. If you were in the choir or band, you just kind of performed at the concerts and on the field if you were the band.
It was honor choir. I remember this now.
But with junior year, we started actually going to places.
So, this was one of the things that SIU held. And it was here that I know that I was not in a great place at the time. Like I said, I was still sort of riding the high of the variety show win. One thing that I tried my hardest not to do, after I won first place, I tried my hardest never to brag about it. I enjoyed it whenever I had the chance to say, oh yeah, that was a great moment. I had a lot of fun, but I tried my hardest never to brag about it. And it was for the specific reason that, well, first of all, being a humble winner is way better than being a sore winner or a sore loser. Just as being a humble loser is better than being a humble winner is better than being a sore loser. Just as being a humble loser is better than being a sore winner. Now, what I mean by that is that I never wanted to brag about it in fear that somebody might step up to me and be like, well, I really don't, I think that you need to stop. You need to stop bragging and being so braggadocious and all this stuff. I don't know why I used the word braggadocious.
Braggadocious.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
You will get us copyrighted if you keep doing this. Braggadocious. That's your word of the day. Look it up.
What does it mean?
I have no idea. That's why I said.
So, this particular night was, first of all, it was a fun experience. Honor choir, great. The day gets over with, and I have the moment that I was fearing would happen. A certain particular classmate of mine comes up and is, I made a slight comment about my win at the variety show, and he was like, you really didn't deserve it. Me and this kid I've mentioned him a few times.
In this video?
Yeah, we've never quite seen eye to eye. But at the same time,
that goes back pretty far.
Goes back to Seussical. I'm in here, I might as well say it. the first big moment of me ever being I guess an asshole or a bully behind the scenes of a musical. The only time I've ever been a bully behind the scenes of a musical was in Seussical. And it was after one particularly bad night. Me and my buddy who was playing the Cat in the Hat
who was mentioned here before too.
Yes. He may kill me for this, but Carson.
He may?
He may, because he might not care about it anymore. I'm almost certain he doesn't.
Probably not.
But he and I had gone out to an amusement park earlier that day. What am I saying? No. The weekend before, we had gone out to an amusement park. That's what it is. I'm sorry. 2 a.m. will do a lot of things to your brain. Caffeine. I don't have any. I've been drinking water.
Well, heck, I'll get you some.
Yes, please. So, Carson played the Cat in the Hat, and he was supposed to play the Cat in the Hat. We had, every day in class, we would have a practice. The weekend before the Monday practice, I had gone to the DuQuoin State Fair and he had gone with. We had been riding rides. We'd screamed our heads off.
Did I go with you that time?
No, not this time.
I don't think so.
It was a fun time. One of the best that I had ever had. We get to school and he's trying to hit the high note for a song that he has to do.
Which isn't that high. It is after you spent all day screaming at an amusement park, though.
And he goes to hit the note, and his voice squeaks. Our teacher lays into him, and removes him as the Cat in the Hat.
Which I've never really understood.
And gives it to the other one.
Not that
he didn't. It's not that he did bad. It's not
he did awesome.
It's not that he did bad or anything like that. He did a really good job. It's just
one mistake,
and everything was taken away.
Which is ridiculous because Johnny and I screwed up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't take our parts away. So.
And admittedly, I was using the bathroom a little bit after this.
This was whenever we were on the stage.
We
were at school.
We were at the school, but I was in the bathroom, and no, we were at the junior high.
No, we were at the school.
Not whenever this particular thing happened. She chewed us out at the school, but it happened earlier in the day.
Oh. Okay.
It was right after this class period. I go to use the bathroom. I get done. I'm washing my hands. He comes out of the bathroom. He's like, "Hey, dude, I'm so happy that I got the part of Cat in the Hat. And I'm so excited to get to work with you guys and everything." And I turned to him, And I said words that I regret to this day. I told him, "That's all nice and good, but get one thing straight, you don't deserve any of this. You don't deserve to be the Cat in the Hat. You don't deserve this part." So anyways,
You want to bury the hatchet? It's been 6 years.
so this same kid who I had said all that to years earlier now had made a pretty good name for himself. He decided to chime in and say, "Well, I did not deserve the variety show win."
Basically, throwing back in Johnny's face what he had said to him about 6 years prior. 5.
And it hurt because not only did I believe him, but other people corroborated it and said that it was mainly just because one class had been cheering for me.
And I'm just going to say it. Myself included.
And that was a night that it put a rift in. It once again started to drive a wedge between me and music, but at the same time, it drove a wedge in a more personal spot between me and my best friend. And you may be asking yourself, why would you talk about this when he's sitting right next to you? Why would you talk about this? And vice versa, why would he talk about it?
Because we've talked about it ourselves.
Because we've talked about it and we've gotten past it.
There were many nights when it didn't seem like we were ever going to.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, really what it comes down to is...
Some of those screaming matches.
What it comes down to is... I was an asshole. And he deserved every bit of it. Every bit of the win, I mean.
And I was also an asshole at times. And I deserved a lot of the stuff that I got from him. Because I gave it to him in subtle, but yet sometimes clever ways. Sometimes. Not usually, but sometimes. Anyway, so we get back on track. That seriously screwed me up as far as, confidence-wise went. I'm trying to get back on track a little bit more well-paced. We had another musical this year, or that year, and it was called Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Now, I know you've heard of that. Because Andrew Lloyd Webber literally streamed it the other week. Or was it last week? I don't remember.
Excuse me.
I did not watch it. Because our production
Soured it for us.
I cannot stand it.
So, this particular musical was once again, I forgot to I forgot to give the positive note about Mamma Mia. I only told the negative.
Yeah.
So, the one positive thing that came out of Mamma Mia is, while I did play a background character for the majority of the show, during the last moments of the show, I played the priest. And all the way up until the night of the show, we had practiced it one way. Which was, first of all, I was going to come out looking like I normally did. I was going to deliver the dearly beloved. We are gathered here today to join so and so and so and so and blah 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 blah. I was supposed to deliver all of that in normal, just voice.
And we were gonna put you in like your fester robe, weren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Did we end up doing that?
We cut all the stuff off of it.
Yeah,
we cut all the ghouly stuff off of it, and we used it.
Such a shame. That would have made such an interesting scene.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. That's not quite Fester, but that was good. Whatever it was.
That was weird.
That was weird. 2:18 a.m.
I was like, Neo Cortex meets... What's his name? The big head guy in Marvel. MODOK?
I guess. And we just offended 1,300 Marvel fans somewhere in the world. But
I'm sorry, I know the comics. I've always blocked his name out for some reason.
We get to the night of, and all at once, my brain goes into overdrive. I literally go backstage, and I find this spray that said that had white. It was for white, turning your hair white, and I start spraying it into my hair and my beard at the time, which was much thicker than this, and I thought it looked really good. And from the stage,
I thought it was a bad idea. Because this was literally show night.
Don't
people were
ever do that, by the way.
Our director had no idea that was happening. I mean, you started doing it like shortly after the bagpipe scene, right?
Mm-hmm. Whenever I was done being an extra, or whenever my ensemble time had come to an end, I was like, okay, I've got like 30 minutes, I'm going to do this. And I start spraying my hair, and she comes out, and she was like, here, I'll help you. And I thought, I might get a screaming, I might get my ass chewed. She helps me spray it on and get it all together and stuff. And I get my robe on, I have this little cross necklace that I had hung down. And I come out for the scene. And again, don't do this unless it's really just that inconsequential, which it was, to be honest. But if it's really, do not do this. But on the night of the show, we get out there, and I'm supposed to go out there. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. And I get out, and I go.
He starts doing this.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to join in marriage one Miss, and I forget what her name is.
Donna?
No, the other one. It was...
Yeah, that's right, it's, Sophie.
Together in the bonds of marriage, Sophie and... Sky. And I start using this really weird accent.
Meanwhile, I play Eddie, and the guy who plays Pepper, we're right next to each other. We are biting holes in our lips.
Trying not to laugh.
Because we've grown up with this guy. And we know that he does stuff like this. It's just...
On the night of the show.
We're back there. We're just like... And we got back there. We got backstage and we were like, he did not just do that. He did not just do that. And I think he probably went up to him and said, I cannot believe you did that.
It was a great night in general. And that was the one silver lining that came from that musical. Anyways, I figured I'd jump back to that because I missed the positive in it earlier. Just like I'm not going to miss the positive in this one. So, we get
There's a positive to this?
Oh, yeah. There's a positive to Joseph. There are two. And you're looking at them. That was very egotistical. I am so sorry. Wow. Where are you going?
Good seeing you, buddy.
Oh. So, the thing about the musical is the casting was weird. This was the first year we had the new music teacher at the helm. And she was helping the drama teacher, Madame. And it was one of those things where they had very similar opinions and things like that. It's just when it came right down to it, Madame had originally wanted or had in mind someone to play the lead role of Joseph, and I'm not going to really get into that right now, but this guy auditions. He has an amazing voice, and they had him audition with a song, and he got the part. The only thing is, what we didn't know at the time is he was dealing with a very crippling illness, which prevented a lot of, dancing, movement, things like that, which are very needed for Joseph, the character. Not to mention, on top of this, he wasn't the most stellar actor. He was a very great singer, but not a stellar actor. So, we had mic troubles, we had casting issues, and we had kids working in the production. Don't work with kids.
Wow.
Unless you're going to do like a grade school play, don't work with kids unless you know that they all are able to work.
If you're going to work with kids, then meet up with the teachers of those kids and find people who are actually going to be there to listen and do what's asked of them.
Not to mention, we also had some junior hires and things who just did not listen to anything. And overall, the show just had a really lackluster feel to it.
Really did.
The mics kept cutting out on us. I know one night I was actually late for a costume change. I played Jacob, and he played Pharaoh. I also played Potiphar, but
imagine a tenor singing Elvis. No, I will not do the impression. I will not do it.
Just do one ah-ha-ha.
No!
Come on, one ah-ha-ha.
No.
Ah, fine.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
That wasn't my best.
But yeah, he played the part of Pharaoh. I played Potiphar and Jacob. This was the low point as far as performance goes, I think, in probably both of our careers. Oh shoot, I forgot to even... I'm a little bit off topic, or off track, but So, this would be probably the weakest musical we'd have at the school, to the point where it was very nail and tooth to do the next year's, which was the one we just got wrapped up. But
we haven't finished it yet.
We haven't even finished it yet.
We did one show.
Coronavirus. COVID-19. So, throughout all of this, and throughout the many different shows that we did at the school and things like this, you started branching out at first. And your first venture outside of the school was at
Arts Turns.
And you were in...
I was in Hunchback of Notre Dame. The musical is, in my opinion, better than the movie.
I would agree with that, but it's also because I like dark stuff way more than I do child-friendly fluff. Just what was the atmosphere in a new place like the Civic Center?
Going from Passionag, which is our high school stage, to the Civic Center was very, very pleasantly surprising.
Sorry about the noise.
A little bit mind-blowing. Like, really. Because you think about how many people have actually played on that stage.
Mm-hmm.
And then to find out that, hey, you're going to get a solo in this show on that stage where, like, your idols have played. You're like, wait, what? This was like 30 minutes away from where I lived the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So, community-wise, it was similar for the most part. But I will say that theater kids that are more involved usually have bigger axe to grind.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah.
So, you'll run into a couple of them that are like, that seem like they're snobbish, but they're not. They're really not. They're just trying to help you, like, find your footing.
And then you'll find your select few who start war zones.
Yep.
Not long after that, you would get told to audition at a place that is now very near and dear to both of our hearts. I don't want to get really,
It's about the closest thing professional that we got around here.
The most professional, and I don't want to get too bragging about it, but like the best theater company in Southern Illinois.
Wow, that's we're not calling you out any other.
We're not calling you out. I gotta represent
Skyline Creek Productions.
Skyline Creek Productions. Anyone in Southern Illinois probably knows them as the Rocky Horror Show Factory.
Absolutely.
What was your experience working on such a big
scale? For the first thing, it was weird that they had like a separate building for rehearsals. They had the dance studio, which was right down the street from the Civic Center, which was the Skyline Creek office.
Mm-hmm.
It's where they still do, if they ever open it back up. lessons and dance and stuff like that. My first show with them was Anything Goes.
Phenomenal.
I played the purser, and I was told that I put a really, really funny spin on the character that is usually like really, really boring. Because it's hard to make a small character like that like stand out, but I guess we're both good at that. So
The whole thing about it is you can't really people oftentimes say if you're making a small character feel big, you're, I guess, trying to upstage, and that's only for really if you force it. If you try to force a character to feel bigger than it is, then it becomes like that.
But I can honestly say that had I not auditioned for Skyline Creek, no way would I be the actor I am today. Absolutely no way. To work in an environment with adults as a sophomore in high school, it's scary. Especially when you don't know what you're doing. But a lot of those adults are like there and they're like, yeah, I was you at one point. Because like, what's weird is that a lot of them haven't been doing theater their whole lives. They got into it like late in the game.
Nice.
Like starting in high school at like a production or something like that. And to think of that, like, hey, I'm you. So trust me, I've got you. Just stick with me. I learned how to tap dance from Skyline. I learned how to be a good comedic actor and not break on stage, which I never really had that big of a problem with anyway. We can always make each other break. Always. Doesn't really matter what we're doing. All I have to do is like look at him in an angry scene and just go,
not fair. It's not fair. Though it's practically like a game for me and him backstage, trying to make each other break.
When you find that actor that you really work really, really well with, which I've found a lot of over the years, you try and do that. Also, you have belting competitions backstage. That's real fun.
That's fun. I've never been involved in those. That's usually for the vocalists more than the more actor oriented.
But I also want to say about Skyline Creek, they just treated you with respect. You would think that like a high schooler coming into the place, right, would be like, oh, he's a kid, he doesn't know what he's doing, so let's just, No. They treated me like I was a person.
Mm-hmm.
And like they taught me without like, forcing me to do anything. They made me a better actor and a better person overall by putting me in such. That was one of the greatest theater environments I think I've ever been in. Because even like everyone on the tech crew, like they always came up and they were like, "Hey, I just want to tell you that you're doing a great job with your character. They don't give you a whole lot to work with, but hey, you're doing a great job." So, yeah.
So, you start branching out into these other different fields. Yeah, you worked with Art Starts, Creative was another one. Into the Woods was amazing.
I played Jack.
It was one of the best shows I've been to. What was it? The other one was one that neither of us unfortunately got to be in. Was Art Starts, Newsies, but
yeah,
I actually did a review on that, plugging it on the channel. But so we get through with Mamma Mia and we get through with Joseph. The thing that I skipped, and again, 2:37 a.m. will do this to you, but It was right after Mamma Mia that they were doing a production at Art Starts. Annie Jr. Right?
Was it Annie Jr. or was it just Annie?
I think actually no, it was Annie, because Annie Jr. is the show that I went and saw in seventh grade. No, sixth grade.
Sixth grade.
One of the shows that inspired me, but they did a production of Annie, and this was my first time working outside of the school. It was a scary experience, to be honest. Like going to the Civic Center for an audition, auditioning in the Civic Center, and seeing so many other people there, all wanting basically the same things.
It's very competitive.
Very competitive.
Which is what makes it such a great thing whenever the cast list comes out and, like, most of the people are like, hey, you did awesome. You deserve what you got. It was great. It's a very loving environment.
Mm-hmm. It was right. This was also right after the variety show. So, I think it was you who told me that I should do The Night Chicago Died for them.
Yeah.
And it was
me and my dad, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because we took you.
I performed The Night Chicago Died in front of them, which that's another big no-no in music or in musical theater is don't do a show or don't do a song that's not from a show.
I disagree.
That's one of the big no-nos, at least when it comes to...
If you're going to do something like Rocky Horror Show...
Well, then you can audition with practically anything.
Sing a rock song. Trust me on that. Sing a rock song.
But one of the big no-nos of being in traditional musicals...
Usually, they'll have this whole thing set up like, hey, here's auditions. You want 16 to 32 bars of this. Please make it be a song from the musical. No acapella auditions allowed, which means...
not from the musical, something that's related to the musical.
Something that's related... Something from a musical. That is not this musical.
Because you do something from this musical, and they will have a cow.
Yeah, some of them will.
Sometimes. You're probably not going to get many parts by doing that, just saying.
I don't know, I know somebody who auditioned for Les Mis, who I think she auditioned with something from Wicked.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was like, listen, I promise I'm better than this. And they were like, alright, fine. They let her do I Dreamed a Dream. And she got the part.
Nice. So like you said, the environment for Art Starts is very competitive, but it's also very loving and nurturing. They treat you like family.
It's competitive at first.
Well, in auditions, it's like everyone's at each other's throats. By the end of the musical, though, it's like you're a family.
Absolutely.
Especially the cast party and stuff, like, really felt like a family get-together more than a party of people who work together. And that would be another similar occurrence that I would have after Joseph. So, Joseph gets over with. It's by far the worst musical I've been in. Again, I apologize to anyone who was working in it and working on it.
I know you guys worked hard.
Everyone put in good work. Everyone put in a good thing, but it was just so many things went...
Sometimes shows just flop.
So many things went wrong from the technical standpoint.
And sometimes that's really not anybody's fault. Just kind of happens. You win some, you lose some.
But the two good things that I took away from Mamma Mia, Joseph, yes. The two big things I took away from Joseph was, on my end, that it just once again showed that even if I don't always hit it on the head, I am willing to try different things to make a character try to fit into a different mold than other people have. I think for Potiphar, I didn't quite hit it, and Jacob, I was... How do you really do the part of Jacob? He has 3 lines. You're an old man. You're frail. That's basically all you get.
That's it.
That's one of those parts that if you try to make it bigger than it is, people will notice. I did not try.
I have 2 acting tips here. Number 1, don't be afraid to play around. If they gave you that character, they want you to play around. They want you to find your style of it. They want you to live through the character. So if that means that you have to take something out of yourself and put it into it, they love that. They will never say no to that. Second, too often you'll see someone go into an audition, and say you have to do a monologue or something, and somebody will ask, "Hey, can I use this chair?" Which is weird. It throws off the flow. Think of it like this: a painter would never ever ask if he can use his brush.
Tips straight from the actor's. Was it the Actor's Notebook?
I think so. I mean, yeah, I read that and it just kind of blew my mind. Because it's like, wow, you are an artist.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ask permission. Do it. If you aren't supposed to, they'll stop you.
Mm.
And trust me, they want you to take that chance. It shows character.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's my tangent.
The big thing with Potiphar is, in a lot of other instances, he'd been played up like a goof. He was this big fat oaf whose wife was cheating on him, and he was just there was nothing sinister about him, and there was nothing really big and bad about him. And maybe there wasn't supposed to be. But that's not what I read in the story that I found for the context of the character that I presented, which was a man who was a slave master.
So was everyone.
But at the same time, he was a man who wasn't a pushover. He was a very stern man. A very harsh man. And I tried to accentuate that in the way that I acted on stage.
The one that I saw that Skyline did?
Mm-hmm.
Their Potiphar played like a scary Potiphar, and it really worked. Yeah, I want to clarify that. I said that I can't stand Joseph. Recently, I saw a fantastic production of it. He's still upset that he didn't get to go.
Mm-hmm.
And he should be, because it was amazing. I mean, amazing. I still don't... Hate me if you want. I still don't care for Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals all that much. But it was good. So.
What is it? I lost my train of thought. The second big good thing to come out of that musical was I guess what I'm going to call the rebirth of Nathan Bircoates, as an actor-wise goes.
I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
Years previous, you'd shown that you can play a good character, you can play a funny character, you can play a character that has nuance, but when you got up there and you were Pharaoh, there was a flamboyance to you that had never been seen before.
I had to
the hip thrusts.
I had to hip thrust at people.
That was phenomenal. Even though your mic quit working every night.
I was told people could still hear me, so I mean, I guess I must have been doing something right.
People could still hear you, and at the same time, just the way you went about things, you opened up this new side of you that I think really has helped other people to be like, okay, he can do this.
I was in a lot of pain, though. Like I said, tenor, baritone.
Yeah. But you made it through, and I think overall you made it out as a better
I haven't played a villain yet.
character overall.
I really want to.
So, Joseph ends, and again, on a personal level, neither of us were quite on a good place.
Not quite.
But
Excuse me.
Things would change oh so drastically over that summer.
Do you want me to get, like... I mean, you talked about church and stuff, but...
Well, you can tell your side of it, yeah. You can tell your piece about it is that...
Okay. I got saved when I was 8 years old. And, I remember, thinking about God and stuff like that, and reading the Bible, and I was even a preacher at my church for a little bit. And I'm told I was a fire and brimstone preacher. I was scary. Which, if you can imagine, I was like 4'8", less than 100, and I had a squeaky voice. So, I mean, how you can consider that scary is beyond me. But over 8th grade Christmas break is whenever I started to hit puberty, and I lost a part of myself, and I fell out of the fold. And after Joseph, playing Pharaoh, being in that much pain, put me through a lot, emotionally, mentally, and my life was just a train wreck. There are some other things there, but I won't go into them because they're a little hard to explain.
Hard to explain, and entering dark territories that I don't know if we should even open up on a thing like this.
Absolutely not.
But needless to say...
But over the summer, I figured out that not only had I fallen out of the fold, I didn't even know what being in the fold meant. It wasn't just that I rededicated my life to God. I figured out who God was. I actually, listened. And from that point on, I just had this brand new courage that I never had before. this brand new hope, this brand new strength that allowed me to talk to people. I mean, it took time, because everything takes time. It's a work in progress. But when it all culminated was whenever, I'll just go into it. Finals, I walked into Madame's room as a junior, and I said, hey, I'm going into directing when I go to college. Would it be possible for me to direct a fall play? And I thought she was going to be like, well, I mean, we've never had a student do that before, so it would be weird and nobody would be up to it, and so maybe we could have you do like a recital or something. But no, she said, absolutely. And that's another thing that stuck with me, is that told me that she trusted me, and that means a lot. So, we start coming through different play scripts and stuff like that, and I find one that I love, and it is hilarious from start to finish. There's even like a drunk scene in it.
We'll get to that, trust me.
We'll get to that. It's called Peril on the High Seas.
A very small-known play.
And what it became known as to my musical friends was anything goes without music.
That's essentially what it is.
And we ended up putting like scene change music and even a dance break in it, which was cool.
My favorite part is the one that could have got us sued. Putting Duke of Earl at the end of it.
Yeah, after the bows.
Because the character who I played makes a small joke about it, so for like weeks on end, I would not stop begging him, put it in the end, put it in the end. And he was like, okay, fine, I will put it in the end.
But I remember I went into that school year with a brand new look on life. And I was still anxious. The feeling of fear was still there whenever I talked to people. And for that other thing. But there was something behind it that just said, go. And I listened. Now, before I talk about directing the play, if you want to talk about your summer.
Well, I had a similar sort of thing happen. I have always been in church. I've always been a Christian. But we all have times in our life where it's hard, even if you are a Christian, to maintain your faith and to stay away from the evils of this world. And something that I really had to work towards, to find, and something that I still struggle to find every day, is that it's okay to mess up as long as we try to change. Anyway, my summer went as follows. Some of you out there are this far and are like, where is this going to? You started in 4th grade and have got all the way up to present day. Where is this going?
By the way, if you've made it this far, thank you.
But the whole purpose of this is to show, I guess, the journey and where we were, where we've been, and where we are as actors, as humans, since the first musicals, since the first few steps into musical theater.
Do you want me to shut that?
Yes, please. I wonder how much noise that is put into this. One of the big moments over the summer was whenever I decided to take Nathan's advice and I auditioned for Skyline Creek. He was going to audition for Skyline Creek when he was offered a position as the assistant director of the musical.
Assistant stage manager, really. But, I mean...
Which one did they have you as officially?
Assistant stage manager.
Oh, sorry. There's not really much.
And I had my name wrong at first.
I don't even want to know what they had written down.
Well. That's the dog.
That's the weirdest noise I've ever heard him make from the other room.
I was ready. We were going, my voice teacher and I, we were going to audition, and we had a great song picked out and a monologue. Did we end up making you guys do a monologue?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Because you did the one that had all the curse words in it. Because back then we thought that was cool.
Back then, that was last summer.
I know. But instead, one day I got a phone call and he was like, "Hey, rather than audition for this thing, what do you say you help me out with it?" And I'm like, "Wait, what?" "Yeah, auditions aren't for a couple of months anyway, so I can just give you a script and you can start making notes, and basically you will sit in and I'll show you what all this is all about on a professional, somewhat level." And I was like, absolutely.
Note that this is after he had already told a couple of people about his student directing adventure that he was going to undertake.
Yes.
And I'm about to get to your stuff as the student director. I thought The Bodyguard was an amazing show.
Did we say did we say that it was The Bodyguard?
I guess I didn't.
It was The Bodyguard.
The Bodyguard, which
you know
is...
that really old movie that your parents watch with Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston?
Mm-hmm.
It's that, but they made a musical out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really good.
It's really good, and this was one of those shows that it really made me not per se regain a fire, but really it lit a fire under me as far as acting goes. And it made me really start to look at and appreciate the simple nuances of theater and of acting. Such as how a scene with a guy eating fruit and being threatened with a knife can go from being and just a throwaway thing to funny by just a simple this eye's not wanting to open right now, and I don't know why.
You're tired, buddy.
I also got a hair in my eye.
Yeah, that would do it.
Either that or a sleepy.
Starting to clear up a little bit.
Nice. So, throughout the bodyguard, I think that everyone really did their part. I'll get into the funniest bit at the end, but what was it like in your first partial directing forte?
Well, at first, I didn't really have all that big of a role. I mean, I took attendance, and I wrote down props. But what I figured out as we went along was that he was trying to train me, for lack of a better word, in every thing that he could. So he started me on props, and then as rehearsal started getting more intense, he's like, "Come here, start taking notes." So, he's like, "All right, I'm going to make these notes, write this down, and you can write down your, whatever you think." And so, you start doing that. I just realized that. Had it not been for Bodyguard, I wouldn't have had any sort of directing style to direct Peril on the High Seas. So, but as the show progressed and we got onto the stage and stuff, I essentially became that one guy who stands backstage and has that little earpiece with that microphone, the headset, and he hits that button and he starts talking to the director. And you probably think he's an asshole, but it's just because he's busy and he can't really talk to you because he's moving set pieces around and talking to the fly guys and saying, "Hey guys, why is that not up? Put it up. Put it up. Put it up!"
Also hearing the stage manager scream in his ear from the other end.
Ah, memories.
I can only imagine what it's like to have one of those headsets on.
She'll probably never watch this, so I mean...
I don't know. Someone might show it to her. Derek might show it to her.
And if so, I respect you. Tone it down.
That's never a thing to say. That's never a thing to say. So, Bodyguard wraps up. One of the best productions I've ever been in. I was proud of it. And
I was proud of it.
We get to senior year, which is this year. Or end of last year. And it's time for Peril on the High Seas. The first fall play at our school in 3 years. And it's being led by a student. So many factors were put into place that should not have worked. So my question to you, sir, is how the hell did you do it?
How did I do what?
Make it work.
Make it work. Okay, what do you mean by make it work? Because as long as there's a show there, it doesn't really have to be good. It's there.
Okay, how did you make a show that should have been throwaway, should have been really nothing big, nothing special, into the most talked about thing at the school for about a month?
And we only had 2 performances of it.
And then to be brought back up in another issue of a paper 2 months later.
Yeah. You know how our faith says that, like, we get tested.
Mm-hmm.
One of the major ways that we get tested is through pride. And I got tested. I mean, when the entire school is talking about the first ever student director in FCHS history, it's hard to not walk around with a chip on your shoulder. So I'll ask you, how'd I do?
You did good.
Okay.
You found your director mode, I guess. You found how to talk to people and how to really open yourself up to people. I had people coming up to me during the show, after the show. I still have people coming up to me being like, I never knew Nathan could talk so much. I never knew Nathan had all of that in him. I never knew Nathan could talk.
Who said that? I want to know. I mean, did they think I was mute or something?
I don't... I was just exaggerating with that one.
Okay.
But, she was one of those who came up to me and was like, holy moly, I never knew Nathan had such a personality about him.
Makes sense.
And just so many people, as far as, opening yourself up and getting out of your shell all the way goes, you made the biggest leap anyone could. As far as being a director goes, you did your job as you were supposed to. When something wasn't working, you let us know. When something was, you sung the praises, but only enough. So that way we didn't feel like we were devalued. You sung it, or you didn't linger on something like, oh, that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. You let it happen. Were happy about it, complimented it, and then let it go. Which is what a director should do. Basically what I'm saying is don't give it up.
Thanks, man. He wants my insight on it. That was... Wow.
I'll make him cry.
Well, not just because of that. Like, I know that people were like, hey, I can't believe Nathan could talk. I know people are like that. Because what social anxiety does, for those of you who know, you know this. Without you even realizing it, it makes you shut out everyone. So, there are a few people that I want to thank. If you ever watch this video. First and foremost is my co-host right here. Second is anyone who played a lead in The Little Mermaid my freshman year, or Fear Factory for that matter, which was the play. Thank you, Madame.
I gotta also give a thank you to Madame, but I'll let you finish yours.
Thank you, Art Starts. There's a specific one in there. There are specific ones in there, but pretty sure you know who you are. Thank you, Derek Matthew Hamblin.
He's gonna shoot me. I'm just kidding. He's a sweetheart.
I know that I shut people out. And yet, somehow, you saw that kid who was in a dark place, and you could tell. And yet you still went out of your way to just talk to him. God, I didn't want to cry at 3 a.m.
That's what 3 a.m. does to you.
Is that going to be like our catchphrase? That's what 3 a.m. does to you.
I mean, I've just been saying it because we chose such a late time to record. Every time I look at the clock, I'm like, that's what 2:18 does to you, that's what 2:30 does to you, that's what 3:12 does to you.
Yeah. There are specific ones within those groups, but you know who you are. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for actually making me feel like I was a person. Directing, if I can get off of that for a second. Directing was a weird, scary, awesome experience that you just can't really explain. It's one of those things, you know? It's like you can never explain the feeling of what you get whenever you are on a team that wins a championship. You can't explain that feeling, you just know it comes, and you can't talk about it afterwards. I mean, like, not in depth. And it was like that. There were a lot of things that were happening behind the scenes that were going to cause it to be canceled. Thank God it didn't.
Man, they were pissed when we left that paintbrush in the sink.
Some of the cast were a little... What would the word be?
Rambunctious?
Rambunctious. Negligent, a little bit.
Yes.
Specifically when we were doing set build.
Our school has a specific sink that you're supposed to use if you're using anything to do with paint. Because there was already people in there using it, a couple of us decided to use the kitchen. That was a big mistake on our part. And our principal really gave us a nice little warning saying that we would be cut if this continued. That's never a good thing to hear. Luckily, everything went on as planned. We got to the show with multiple setbacks, I will say. Do you want to say about it, or
well, for one thing,
cast dropping out and stuff?
For one thing, we had to have a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Because they wouldn't let a student completely lead this thing, because it had to be like, it's a school thing. There has to be an administrator for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Madame had to step down for family reasons again. And so we had somebody step up and answer the call. And I mean, I'll say his last name.
I think it's fine. His name was Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Wilson. He is an English teacher at FCHS. And I guess he's always done plays like in college and stuff like that. So he had some experience.
He's also a songwriter.
He's also a songwriter. Many of you who watch this will probably know him. I mean,
at least many of you who watch this have probably heard of one of the songs he wrote called what was it?
I don't really remember what it was called, but he wrote a song for...
Huck Finn Blues.
for Brad Paisley.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what was weird is that apparently they were threatening to kick him out of his position as the administrator because they wanted somebody who actually like had a degree in theater to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And had they pulled the plug right there, that would have been it. No fall play, no nothing. Thank God they didn't. We were able to continue on, and we ran auditions, and we had about 17 people audition, which for Peril in the High Seas was pretty good. I mean, we had 12 spots to fill. And as rehearsals started to go, we had about a month and a half to prepare for this thing, right?
Right around, yeah.
So I was like making schedules and stuff, which that's my second directorial tip, or whatever. I'm not keeping track anymore. Do your logistics stuff first. Don't do it after auditions.
Mm-hmm.
That's a dumb idea. I did it first. Over the summer, actually, I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to show her that I want to do it. So I started like typing up a schedule, and I started typing up like, this is the character, and this is what I want. This is what I'm looking for, and simple things like little notes that I wanted to put in, like stage direction and stuff. And I think she looked at it and she was like, "Holy crap, he actually wants to do this." I could be wrong, but I think that's what happened. And so yeah. We had 17 people audition. I had to fill about 12 spots. Rehearsals start going. And it took me a little bit to get my bearings, but according to everything that I've heard, when I became director, Nathan, I was a completely different person.
In a good way.
In a good way.
The way you said that, it was like, I was a completely different person. The things that you could have seen when I was that person. Anyways, but
yeah, I was stern. I was aggressive. I tried to find that line, and whatever felt like I should tell them, I would tell them. And whatever felt like I should be like, you know what, I'll hold that back for right now. I'll hold it back. And whenever you try and go by the guidelines that you set for yourself from the beginning, it takes away a lot of stress from you, because you know exactly what you want from this particular scene. And if you're just running that scene, as long as everybody's willing to do their part, which sometimes they weren't.
Ouch.
I'm not just saying you, I'm saying everyone.
That's about as good as the time you called me out on stage in front of everyone.
Yeah, I did that. I did do that. Well, you're a villain, man. You're the main villain. You're the funniest character in the show.
I don't know. What's her name? What's his name who played what's her name? Josh, who was playing...
Yeah. Mary Pickaxe.
Mary Pickaxe. He gave me a run for my money, and that's...
So, that I have to explain to you. Because that was hilarious.
Basically, we didn't have enough females.
It wasn't just that. We had enough females.
We did?
I just said... I looked at Mary Pickaxe, and I watched Josh audition, and he was going to be Snibbly. He was the villain. And Snibbly Swine. If you want to, then you can in a minute. But Josh was going to do that, and Johnny really, really wanted to be Snibbly Swine.
Well, I mean, the way that you're sounding, be careful. Basically, he really thought that Josh...
He auditioned, and I was like, Josh has got this. I actually had him written down as Snibbly. And then I was like, you know what? I looked at Mary and I'm like, I turned to Mr. Wilson and I turned to Madame, who was sitting in on auditions, and I was like, hey, how do you guys feel about a drag character? And Mr. Wilson's like, not even missing a beat. Yeah, I'm down. And Madame was like, okay, but you have to be careful. I just found that funny because Mr. Wilson was just one of those types of guys. You could throw off the most out there idea, and he'll just be like, yeah, that makes sense. Nothing against him. That's just his personality.
It's great.
It's awesome. So I was like, well, I think that Mary Pickaxe, who is an aging actress, she's supposed to be in like her 50s, probably. Mm-hmm. But she tries to be younger. Mm. She tries to act younger. I think that would be hilarious if it were played by a guy. And Josh has this high tenor. Like a really high, almost squeaky tenor. So I have one callback for one character. Everyone else, they came in and I was like, yeah, they're going here, they're going here, they're going here. I had one callback and it was for Snively.
So let me just cut in real quick because Snively Swine is, according to the character himself, when you read it, it's one of those villains at first that you're like... When I first read the thing, I pictured Lord Licorice, if that tells you anything. Lord Licorice from Candyland. So I tried to make my voice match what I remember Lord Licorice sounding like in the computer game. So at first I'm like, Snively Swine here. And apparently that was very drab and awful.
There was just something missing.
So they call me back in for callbacks, and I'm like, God, you've got to do something different. You've got to do something. And then it hit me. This character is a baseline character. There's no other really big production out there of this show that has any different takes on it.
Don't look it up on YouTube. The production there,
it's drab.
It sucks.
So he calls me back and he's told me, basically, dude, I'm gonna do this callback because I think that there's another part that we want to give to this guy. But if you give me another performance like you did the first time, I promise you will not be Snively Swine.
Did I say that?
It was basically...
Did I imply it?
That's what the implication was.
Okay.
It was, you offered me the part of Mary Pickaxe, and you were like, if you want, you can take this right now and we'll not do the callback, but if you... In the object of fairness, if you do want the callback, we do have someone else in mind for Mary Pickaxe. And I was like, okay. We get there, and once again, I think I was backstage at the time. Or not backstage, but outside, and I was practicing, and I was like, Snively Swine here. And I'm like, God, he's right. There is something missing. And I was like, how do you make this your own? How do you make this your own? And then, out of nowhere, I get in there, and they make us do a dual read. Wasn't it we were in the same room?
No.
Or... No. You called him in, then you called me in.
Yeah. We had him read for Snively first and then Mary, and then we had you read for Mary first and then Snively.
So, I'm listening sort of closely, not, okay. I'm going to make an admission here that probably most theater kids do it, they just don't talk about it. I was one of those guys who went up and cupped his ear on the door.
Not me.
And I'm listening, and when Josh gets out there, I'm just, I'm shooting the shit with him. And I'm just like, hey dude, so like, what's your Snively voice? And I heard it and I was like, that's similar to mine. What can I do different? If mine sucked and his is good, then I gotta find something different. Different than what I did. Different than what he did. And I was like, this would be weird. What if I bring back Uncle Fester? Next thing you know, Snively Swine here. I humbly apologize. I do not normally make an entrance imitating a duck with a hernia.
And I can tell you right now that in that moment, I don't know if you saw.
Mm-hmm.
You started that Snively Swine here, and I turned to Mr. Wilson. He looked at me. We gave each other this. And I started writing things down. And Madame was kind of in the same boat. So, and then, right there, like, it just happened. I was like, that's it. He got it. Because Josh had read for Snively, and we had him read for Mary Pickaxe. And he started out with this really high, squeaky voice, which was funny. But then we decided, hey, it's kind of hard to hear you, and especially in that auditorium, like, it's going to be hard to understand you. So bring down the pitch a little bit, and this is where the funniest part, I think, comes. And it's like, Mary Pickaxe is chased, essentially, around the ship by a married couple, Willie and Wanda. Wanda is a super fan of Mary Pickaxe. And she's like, I've been your fan for years and years and years. And Josh played it perfectly. He was just like... and then there's a moment whenever he's like, oh yes, and then she's like, she says something about her age, right?
It's like, what was the line? It was, you're like an old friend.
And then she's like, no.
Oh no, that was shit.
Oh, that's right. You mean what's her face in The Taming of the Shrew?
No.
And what's funny is that it's a girl.
It's an old woman,
and
she screams with the deepest man voice.
And the audience
died when he did that.
Especially when he was like, ahem. I was thinking more Juliet in Romeo and Juliet.
God, I hope he's doing good in this. If you watch this, Josh, which I'm gonna send you the link, so you better fucking watch it.
It's kind of long. It's kind of long, but
it's long, but it's a podcast. What the fuck do you want?
Pause it and come back to it.
2 F-bombs right next to each other. Holy crap. I'm tired. Anyway.
So, technically, this show faced many, many, many difficulties. Apparently, I was a very, very respected director, as I could tell by my very, very respectful cast. However, due to people in other commitments and stuff, which I completely understood and stuff.
No, for the most part.
For the most part. For instance, my lead had to drop out because he was in a bunch of band stuff, because that's what he's going into. So he had to drop out of the show.
He dropped out admittedly early on.
He dropped out pretty early. Because, he hadn't been to a lot of rehearsals, and he was like, you know what, I just have a lot to learn, and I don't think I can do this. But, after he dropped out, a lot of people started dropping out. And when we say a lot, it would be like
half the cast that was originally auditioning.
Yeah. It's a pretty demoralizing thing when you have to recast your show, basically. Because people aren't willing to put in the work.
The other on top of it thing, I think the cherry on top of all the people who dropped out was, what was it, the week of the show.
Mm-hmm.
We had our final dropout, and that was another thing that really pissed me off about that particular person.
See, here's what's funny. And this is why I'm a Christian. I'll just say that. Because I just had instincts. I had intuition. There was one understudy for the whole show. And he was understudy for one character. And that one character
dropped out the week of the show.
Was the one character that dropped out the week of the show. So,
what you gonna do?
By the way, if you were wondering who took over for the lead, yeah, that's my third or fourth or 60th. I don't know.
Okay, braggadocious act.
Do not direct a show and play a lead part in it. You're just asking for a lot of stress.
A lot of stress, but shockingly, due to the circumstances and the very unique circumstances that our play underwent, there was not as much backlash as there would be if someone was to direct their own play and place themselves in the lead in, say, Skyline or something like that.
Yeah.
Because of our very unique situation, kind of like the unique situation that everyone's going through right now. I don't want to compare the two at all, but I'm just saying, it's unique.
Mm-hmm.
But due to the unique situation that we were in, no one really gave him any flack for it, and no one gave us flack for having a director who was also the lead. In fact, they praised him for stepping up and for stepping into a role that he really shouldn't have had to be in.
I was, I even, asked a lot of people that, knew what the show was all about. And people who I respected that I put on my list of thank yous. And I said, do you think it's a bad idea to step in as a lead character for your own show because someone dropped out? And they were like, well, if you can't find anyone else, then who better to do it than the person who spent longer than anyone else studying the script? I mean, no offense to any of my castmates, but when you're the director, you're going to do that.
Not to mention the fact that you had the script months prior to us, and we're not allowed to look at script. any musical you do, if you're allowed to look at the script beforehand, I gotta question the director.
Unless you're precast.
That.
Which happens.
It does. But still.
But yeah, I was praised for it, which, again, goes back to the pride thing. I mean, it's really hard to get all these successes and be humble about it. Because all of a sudden, that one kid who never talked made the front page of the school newspaper. I mean, it blows your mind. And then you have kids, like you have freshmen who come up to you and say, dude, I saw the fall play and it was awesome. I can't believe that a student directed that. And then to know that that's you. Again, I can't describe it. I've been very, very, very blessed to be in the situation that I'm in, that I was in.
That brings us to here and now. Recently, our school put on our spring musical, and it was Shrek the Musical. I got the honor and the privilege of getting to play Shrek. And I also got the honor and privilege of getting to play Shrek with my best friend playing Donkey.
Yeah.
Sometimes, whenever you're enacting, friendship does not translate to stage chemistry. This was not one of those cases. This was not one of those cases of they're friends in real life, but you can't see that on stage. This was a case of you could tell. With everything we did.
If you didn't know us, you probably thought that we were gay.
What the fuck, dude?
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong, but what the fuck?
Donkey had to take elements of Pharaoh and all that flamboyantness and the tenor and combine it.
And then Shrek just... Well, you think that Donkey was gay. You'd think that Shrek turned gay at the end.
We had this scene that we basically did our own blocking for the show. I mean, somewhat.
Yeah, a lot of the blocking was because we've been doing it with the same director for all of our career, Madame.
Yeah.
She gave us a lot of freedom with it, and that freedom, I hope we did. I hope we proved that we deserve the freedom. But we came up with certain blocking for scenes like
that accentuate the feeling that you're supposed to be having in the moment. Such as there's the big apology scene between Shrek and Donkey when Shrek finally realizes, damn, I'm an asshole. I'm being a jackass to a jackass.
Yeah.
And you know, he's like, I'm sorry. And he's like actually serious about it. And I just had like a regular, you know, bro hug. Like, hey, that's what friends are for, right? And hug him. Our director
saw that.
And she's like,
I love it.
Nathan, can you jump into his arms?
I still think it would have been funny as hell if you jumped up into my arms and I just went, oh.
That would have been funny. But
it would have been funny until we were calling the paramedics.
And I was kind of like, well, that kind of, I don't know if that takes away from the moment. And then, you get reminded, wait, you're Donkey. Because of course Donkey would do that.
If he stood on all, or if he stood on twos.
And of course, as you would guess, when that happened for the one performance we did, it stopped the show.
I'm going to start crying. So, there are many performances that have made me proud to be an actor. Fester was the first big one. And, Snively was, I think, my biggest accomplishment as a character actor, as a guy who can just make something his own. Because Snively had literally no direction except for you're a villain and you're kind of cartoonish. Without trying to be cartoonish. And I thought that was going to be my big moment. Shrek gave me many moments that I was proud of. Who I'd be, build a wall. But I will never be more proud. At least of anything that I did at FCHS. Than that moment. Then the apology scene, then the fight, the big culmination of Shrek and Donkey just yelling at each other, cussing at each other, and Shrek in the moment I thought, that's something that always goes through my head. How can I make this unforgettable? And just like you said with me and Snively, something was missing. I read the script and something was missing. And it was that moment. When you and I are standing up there and you're just like, you're going to have to try a lot better than that. Then you even ad-libbed something else on the end of it, and I was like, Donkey, you know what? You're right. Hearing the sound of cheering and applause for a solid 30 seconds to a minute of us just hugging. That's a moment I'm going to be proud of. For as long as I'm in it. So, that's the big culmination of everything, our journey to where we are right now.
That's where we're at.
And where we are at right now is about 3 or 4 months ago, you first came up to me and you were like, hey man, we should do a podcast. 3 or 4 months later, I've got me a microphone, a new camera, and here we are. And I am proud to conclude this first episode.
We've got tons of other projects that we're working on that we'll be happy to share with you guys as we go down the road. Next episode,
I'll let you take this one away.
Of Llama Hump Days, we will be reviewing something. How about that? Because that's what this is going to be, essentially.
It's going to be reviewing, discussing, talking about whatever is really happened in the week for theater.
I will tell you that this will be the longest podcast, probably. The longest episode.
The longest episode, the most ranty episode. One that if you want to cut it down and splice it yourself, you can do it. I'm not really going to take the time because it's a podcast. Who do you know that takes a podcast and slices it?
Also, if you made it this far, Christine, I'm sorry. That was uncalled for. I should not have said that. Really. But... okay. So, the next episode of Llama Hump Day, we will be doing a review of a musical that I was recommended to by a close friend of mine. And what's funny is that, according to what I've heard, nobody's really heard about it, including him. Maybe you've heard about it. It's been out for a little bit. It's called Bright Star. The music, the book, I think, is by Steve Martin. I could be getting some of this wrong, but it's a great musical. It takes country music and puts it on stage and is masterfully staged. But you'll hear more about that in the next episode.
As for now, this will conclude our first ever episode of Llama Hunt Day. If you guys do like this and if you have made it this far, I want to personally thank you. And I would like to personally thank many of those people that he's mentioned and more for helping me along my journey, especially Madame. I'd like to thank a guy by the name of Joey. You know who you are. And
Me too.
I'd like to thank Derek for just welcoming me in to Skyline Creek, and also Sam. Oh no, she's gonna kill me. I forgot a last name. I'm sorry, Sam.
Sam Bursich.
Sam Bursich, I love you. But
hey, it's 3:50. All right, get off our backs.
Yeah, 3:50 in the morning, and I'm running on about. Well, actually, I got a nice, quite a bit of sleep, and my dog is growling. Anyway,
can I have an idea for an outro.
Well,
we are doing an outro, right? Like right now, like this would be the time.
What? Oh, what?
This would be the time to like finish it out.
We're still rolling, dude. Yes.
I know, but like.
Yes, this would be the time.
All right. So, sorry, it's a work in progress. Until next time, happy hump day, and break a leg.